All right. Welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Byrne. Evan, how are we doing today?
Doing well. Got a lot of Bucks things that have been popping up as of recently.
Oh my god. You're honestly telling me because it's been a very, very active excuse me. It has been a very, very active off season. And obviously with the NBA draft coming last week, it's just kind of been one of those modes where like Milwaukee is just like I said, they're not expected to make many moves, but you just kind of you hold out the hope that Milwaukee Bucks GM John Horst has one trick up its sleeve, similar to what he pulled off for Damian Lillard a couple years ago. Obviously, they haven't seen the amount of success that we were hoping for that trade, but and again, it really hasn't helped Milwaukee. Like, really hasn't helped them in the standings, and it really hasn't helped them achieve playoff success because last 2 years since Lillard has been with the team, they've been knocked out in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And you get this very eerie, nervous concern of, are they doing enough to build around Giannis? And what would it take for Giannis to be like, this team is not doing all it can to win anymore? Now, from what he said repeatedly, he's not there yet. He's not to the point of like, I'm demanding a trade. I want out of Milwaukee. I don't think this team is going to be able to do enough to build around me. And, I know Shams has catch a lot of flack for that. Even I've given him some flack for that because it's just a frustrating thing for Giannis to continuously be like, I want to stay in Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. I want to win a championship. And then everybody is just like
I don't know.
But yeah, I know you said that, but we're still going to report it as Giannis is like very like watching free agencies, watching the draft and all this other stuff. And I'm like,
everyone is.
And that's the thing too, is like they've kind of been trying to force him out for 5 years. And they're going to take every word that he says as like, no, but really, what does he say? What is Giannis really saying with these statements? And, and they've been saying it despite the fact that he's signed new contracts, that, he's stated over and over again, Milwaukee's my home. This is where I want to go. And, and I think that has a lot to do with his upbringing, because if you notice, European-born players generally are very, very loyal. You see that with Nikola Jokic. You've seen that with Giannis. And if they didn't trade him to the Lakers, you would have seen that with Luka Doncic.
Dirk. And he would have been a Buck for maybe life too if he didn't trade.
So it is not. So it's like, this city loves me. This city enjoys me. I don't want to leave. And sometimes it gets a little lost in the shuffle, because European superstars are not like European-born superstars are not like American-born superstars, like Kevin Durant, right? Like Kevin Durant is just going to teams just to try to see if he can get another ring, and he's been doing this ever since he left the Thunder in 2016. He spent 3 years with the Warriors. Okay. Got 2 championships out of it. Spent a couple seasons with the Nets, with Kyrie and James. Didn't have a good team around him. We went to the Suns, hoping, Bradley Beal and Devin Booker was going to be it. Never was going to work. Three ball dominant guards. And Bradley Beal can't stay healthy. Like, how is that? That was never going to work. And again, did not build a good team around him. And now he's on the Rockets, where, you got a lot of young players. And, that trade that happened last week with, giving up like Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green, the number 10 overall pick.
9, 10, or 11, one of those.
Yeah. So it was like KD Like at this point in time, it's just like I just want another ring, and these are the teams that could maybe help me achieve that. But and I would love the Bucks to win another ring. I just don't think number one they're going to be able to build an adequate team around them, and number two, I mean, can you really achieve success with Doc Rivers leading the way? And I've been saying repeatedly, hell no. But enough of that. Obviously, as we kind of talked about, the NBA draft was a couple days ago. Milwaukee only had one selection. They had the 47th overall pick, and they selected, correct my enunciation on this.
Yours is as best as mine.
It was like Bogolijub
Markovic.
He's from Serbia. Now he's from the same area that Nikola Jokic was developed. So it's like, all right, we all know the story of Nikola Jokic. Of he was drafted during a Taco Bell commercial. His weight heading before he came into the league was like his biggest issue. Obviously, he developed into a top 75 player and one of the greatest big men of all time. Now, this Markovic guy, number one, he's probably going to be a year away before he's competing at the NBA level. He's a very decorated player. Like, he was like Spanish League Player of the Year. Like, he's a very, very decorated player. So I'm not disputing that. What I'm disputing Milwaukee's draft strategy is I've been pounding the table and I've been saying over and over again, you have to get younger. Mm-hmm. Okay, you just have to get younger. And I just don't feel as though Milwaukee is doing all it can to infuse itself with young talent. I still think they think that you can rely on veteran players to win a championship, and that's just not how the league is played anymore. Been saying over and over again. And again, this is kind of a hard model to follow because it will require like a substantial rebuild. But like you got to follow the OKC model like a little bit in terms of you got to continuously do all you can to draft young talent because I've been kind of looking this stuff over in the offseason, and Milwaukee is like Milwaukee after the end of the season. John Horst and Doc Rivers went to Giannis and was essentially like, we're going to build this core around you. Now, the problem is, when I think of a core at the NBA level, right, I think of something like substantive talent. I think of a guy like, Chris Middleton and Lopez and, maybe Bobby Portis. Maybe that could be a core. But the problem is you lose me a little bit when you think a core could be Kyle Kuzma, Taurean Prince, AJ Green, and you might be losing Brook Lopez. So the first question when I saw that was, what core? What core could you possibly build around Giannis? Because trust me, I'm not thinking of Gary Trent Jr. as like a core player. I think of him as a good player on a solid shooter on a team, but he's not like we need to keep Gary Trent Jr. for us to have success. That's not what a core player is. A core player is like maybe 2 to 3 key pieces. And I think with the absence of Damian Lillard, I don't even think Milwaukee has that. So kind of give me your thoughts on, did you like Milwaukee's draft strategy?
The only thing is that, like, it's frustrating because it's like, okay, no one knows who this guy is. He's technically NBA like eligible, but he still can play like a year overseas. So he might, again, not even be on the team this year. It'll be next year. Again, not that he would have played at all either. So it's like either way, he'll get more experience overseas and then come hopefully more ready. Otherwise, he would just sit at the end of the bench and nothing will happen. So we kind of know the outs from that. But it's the 47th pick. It's not the 8th overall pick, and they took this guy. So you got a little bit of lenience of like, okay, maybe maybe he'll be a little something, but nothing of MVP next franchise player. But you never know. I think my bigger or more excitement for the draft was their signing of Mark Sears from Alabama. He's one of those guys where it's like you could maybe like one of those like really good college guys, but not really draft worthy. Cam Jones obviously went to the Pacers, of course, Marquette, but some of those guys who higher on their team, but not necessarily higher in the draft. So really like that signing too. But I don't know. I just get a little frustrated sometimes with the logic of Bucks drafting of let's draft this random guy, hope it works out. If not, let's trade him in 2 years. And it hasn't worked since they drafted Giannis 12 years ago. So it's frustrating because they have so many picks. Again, they always do better in the second round too. They've had more success, I feel like, in the second round just from Malcolm Brogdon alone since Giannis's they drafted Giannis. You could say Dante, but he's no longer on the team. He didn't win any accolades outside of a ring, even though he didn't play in the playoffs for the last 3 series in 21. So I don't know. A little frustrated, but there's a potential of him being a hopeful part of a young core. Just again, 19, 6'11, plays overseas, could play again overseas this year and get more experience and then come ready. Maybe put a little, I got to see a picture of him again, but maybe put on a little weight. 190 pounds. Yeah. 6'11", 190 pounds. That's not, not the best. So bulk up a little bit and, hopefully I can't shut it down now. Obviously, initially I was a little frustrated, but I like to be proven wrong and in a good way like that. So we'll kind of see how it goes. But initially, it's still up in the air. I got to be able to really see him play maybe in the summer league or so and see what their thought is if he's going to play this year or if he's going to go back overseas.
And I think the frustrating the frustrating thing about this particular draft is that Milwaukee has shown time and time again it doesn't really care about developing young talent. Because if it did, a lot more younger players would play. And, it's fine and dandy that they drafted Markovic. But what happens if they get a little, trigger happy and they're like, well, we have a trade chip. Well, we got this guy from Serbia who we could just trade the draft rights over to pick up because they did a similar thing last year with AJ Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Drafted him in the first round. It's like, all right, this is a guy we could develop. But then all of a sudden it was like, no, we gotta push for the playoffs.
Yep.
Kyle
Kuzma. Yep.
Which Kyle Kuzma, by the way, did not end up working out because what Kyle Kuzma is, he's a malcontent basketball player. He doesn't care. He doesn't care whether we win or lose. He's just looking to get his stats. And that is honestly what I saw when I watched Kyle Kuzma play this past season for the Bucks. He doesn't care. He's a traffic cone on defense, and he just cares about getting his shots up. Like, he is a very selfish basketball player. And, that's not a good fit for Giannis and, Damian Lillard. It wasn't. The playoff minutes show he wasn't effective. He was not an effective player. Okay. I think in game 1 against the Pacers, he had he was zeros across the board. It took 2 shots.
He had a Tony Snell game.
He did. And that is so frustrating because you're relying on this guy to be your third scorer. And when your third guy doesn't score and when it's just Giannis and Dame bopping it back and forth, you're not winning anything. So I do think they're going to get rid of Kuzma. Mm-hmm. I do think that Kevin Porter Jr. has likely priced himself out of Milwaukee, which does not surprise me.
Yep.
I just don't think you can afford him. And you have to and Milwaukee just doesn't have enough money as it is.
I agree.
They gave Bobby Portis $45 million for over 3 years. So again, and do I hate that move? Not necessarily. I think Bobby Portis is still a fan favorite. But the problem is you're probably going to need another big because Brook Lopez probably isn't coming back.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't want him back.
I don't want him back either. He was too old. He can't. And again, do I think he helped Milwaukee immensely? On the defensive end, yes, of course. But I'm not going to sit here and just be like, oh my God, Brook Lopez is going to be no, that's probably not going to happen. So I would hope Gary Trent Jr. is back. I think he was a key part. Even if he did blow the game for us, and I believe it was game
It was
game
the
5.
last game.
Yeah, I think it was might have been game 6. I think it was game 6. I think they did take him to 6 games.
Yep.
But like, it might have been game 5. Honestly,
Yeah, game 5. He brought us back into the game and then lost us the game.
That's what I thought. Okay. But like Gary, but still, but what people don't remember is how vital Gary Trent Jr. was in that particular game. Like, he made a lot of big time shots, and even if he sold the game, quote unquote, like, I still think he was an effective player for Milwaukee last season. He was a great value signing. I think he could defend, and he shot the ball better over the course of the season. But I mean, and that's the thing too, is you get him, you get AJ Green, who looked a lot better on the defensive end this past season. And again, I think for a cheap, low value signing, I even think you could be like, we need Jericho Sims back.
I was literally about to say that.
I liked what I saw from Jericho Sims. I will say that right now. I think he was great defensively. Granted, he's not the reason why I liked him, because he does everything that Brook Lopez can't. In terms of, he is quick. He can get out and guard guys. He could neutralize Miles Turner a little bit because he's longer and he can get out to shooters. Be a lot better than Brook Lopez could. I think the connection with him and Lillard, I think that looked great.
Yep. Also, yeah, they had a good connection in the paint.
Absolutely. So I would bring back Jericho Sims because he'll be cheap. That's a cheap, low value signing. But again, like I said, I'm not expecting too much from Milwaukee in free agency. They just don't have the money. And the good news is they're under the second apron, which, if you guys don't know or don't understand, the second apron is essentially essentially, if you keep spending more, you get tax penalties and stuff like that. So that's why teams always talk about the second apron, because what Adam Silver wanted and what we got is a lot more parity in the NBA. We got a lot of teams that, so we're not going to probably see a Warriors Cavs 4 years in a row anymore, because it's really hard. It's hard to build teams now due to those tax penalties that teams can incur if you continuously going over the second apron. And as you guys have kind of seen this offseason, that's why Boston had to trade Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, because they were just in the red on the second apron. So it's all right, well, we got to get some draft picks, and we got to get rid of these older players.
I saw Drew Holiday was pissed that he got traded to Portland.
Again, and people, and this is the second time that Drew Holiday got traded to Portland, but he was able to get rerouted to Boston. It sounds like he's going to stay in Portland, which I feel so bad for him because you go for a champion, you go from a contending team to back to Portland.
Yep, good lined off.
And the same thing for Porzingis, where Porzingis is wait, I'm on the Hawks now? And again, they were going to have to get rid of some of those contracts anyway, because it was because who are you going to trade? You got Jason Tatum, you got Jaylen Brown, Derek White's a vital piece of the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, him and Pritchard are two guys where you're not giving up.
Do I worry about Boston next season? No, not particularly. They're one of those teams that just always figures it out.
Yep, and Tatum's out for the whole year now.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately kind of the bad luck that we have right now is Tatum's out, Lillard's out, Halliburton's out.
All number 0.
3 guys that wear the number 0 are not going to be playing basketball next year, and that sucks because I think the NBA is obviously a star-driven league, and it just sucks to lose that amount of star power.
All in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not over 5 or 6 months. It was within a few weeks.
It is awful. It is truly, truly awful. I feel bad that this even happened, to be quite honest with you. There have been people just kind of talking about why more Achilles injuries happen, or especially in younger athletes. That is a bit concerning. There was a doctor who was on Dan Patrick's show week or two ago, and he was talking about how today's athletes are a lot bigger, a lot more built, but they're a lot more sedentary. So I just don't think they move around as much than they used to. And, that does make sense to me because, 3 players who tore their Achilles all have complained about the fact that their Achilles hurt beforehand. And then that's kind of the reason why they had to, and, they obviously played and they ended up tearing it. So, it's just an unfortunate part of the game. And I hope that, Adam Silver said that they're going to use AI actually to determine why are all these Achilles injuries happening? Like, why are our best players going to be missing time next season? Because you gotta be honest. That's having missing 3 stars for next season. That's not going to be good for the league. Like, and I'm sure players love watching Giannis, and I'm sure people love watching like Jaylen Brown. I'm sure people love watching. Well, and the issue with the Pacers is like you don't really have any star power on that team.
Yep, and I don't know if TJ McConnell's staying. It's like there's some of those guys where it's like that might team just kind of fall apart this year.
TJ McConnell actually re-signed last year along with Obi Toppin, so they're fine.
Okay.
And they're all locked up. But it's like, who's the lots of Pacers next year? Like Halliburton made that team exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody's watching the Pacers be like, ooh, I want to see what Miles Turner does or like Pascal Siakam. There's no slam on those players, but you're not. There's no tune-in factor there. Like I didn't like Halliburton just because of like he's one of those guys that was like so cocky and like so good. But I grew to respect him after seeing like, oh shit, this guy's like actually like one of those guys. Like this guy is, there's a lot of hate on Halliburton, maybe because of his dad, maybe because of his, on-court behavior. But I like Halliburton now. Like there's not one aspect of me that hates him. Like I am gonna miss watching him play because he has such a weird jump shot, but everything just always works out for him.
That dark magic that was going on with the Pacers in that playoffs was the memes for that were great.
Now, everything's going to even out next year. I don't think the Pacers, they're not going to have the same amount of success because, Halliburton's their whole team.
Yep. Now you have 2 dominant big men as your 1 and 2 guys. It could work, but not. I don't think it'll work in the factor of potentially making the finals.
No, I don't think so. They're not. They can't go back to back without Halliburton. Like Halliburton's he's their engine, right? And they go as he goes. And without him, you're not. Like they still draft trio. Like Cam Jones is gonna be a good player for them, but without Halliburton, they have no shot. Like they have absolutely positively no shot to do anything of substance. All right, predictions in free agency because people have asked me like who could the Bucks reasonably afford? Not too many people.
Yep.
Not too many people. I forgot who my list was. I think I said something like Clint Capella.
I was going to mention him. Yep, Clint Capella was one of the guys center-wise. Again, 31, a little older, but not Brook Lopez, 36, 37 years old. Steven Adams is another one out there.
I did throw out Steven Adams.
If I'm going to go centers, I'm going to go Steven Adams.
Yep.
Clint Capella. Bobo.
Ooh.
Or
that could be intriguing.
Like sometimes, I mean, not like a good star power, but Bismack Biyombo is always the guy who's just like, is just going to be aggressive, not going to score, but is going to be aggressive in the paint.
You got to be careful going into next season with Bismack Biyombo because then it's going to look like a rebuilding team.
Yep.
It's always no disrespect to Bismack Biyombo, but that is a rebuilding ass center.
Yep. He always will just bounce around.
Yes. If you're starting next season with Bismack Biyombo as your starting center, I'm like, all right, we should probably, we should probably find a different center.
Yeah, he's one of those he'll randomly appear on your team at one point.
It was like we randomly spawned off on the Suns. I was like, what the hell? Bismack Biyombo's on this team?
If we're going guards, again, not a lot of big name ones. Yeah.
Somebody threw in 3 this offseason. Somebody threw in Malcolm Brogdon.
He hates Milwaukee.
He does not like Milwaukee, which people quickly brought up. I was like, dude, that's not going to happen again. As much as everybody wants it to, like I'm telling you right now, Malcolm Brogdon is not gonna step foot in Milwaukee if he doesn't absolutely have to. Just trust me. I cannot tell you how much he does not like the city of Milwaukee. Even though we loved him, he does not like us. So we might have to keep looking because you kind of want a player who, and again, he's like, well, I already started my career here. I'm not going to keep playing here.
Yeah.
I heard Tyus Jones.
Okay. Not horrible.
I saw Tyus Jones on that list, and then it was who else was it? No, not Chris Paul. Kevin Porter Jr. I think we talked about this. He's probably going to price himself out.
Yep.
That's Spencer Dinwiddie. That's an interesting name. Malik Beasley. He's in a bit of hot water.
Yep. He's probably going to be suspended.
Yeah.
And it was when he was on the Bucks. If you heard that, his investigation.
Yeah. Now people are gonna clip him to death. Where it's like, oh,
yeah.
Well, him just fumbling the ball out of bounds. He was probably,
gambling.
Let's see. Luke Kennard. That could be.
Slinger. I hope they re-sign Ryan Rounds to something cheap.
Yeah, but I hope Ryan Rollins is also not our starting point guard to begin next season. That would be great. That would not be great.
I'm throwing a name out there. I wouldn't necessarily say starter, just more of like a bench guy. Do you think the Bucks try the very minimum? If it's like more than the vet minimum, do you try Russell Westbrook? Are you a no on Russell Westbrook? I was kind of a yes on him last year, and then he kind of did well a little bit.
You know what? Honestly, it depends the role he played. Now, Russell Westbrook as my starting point guard? No,
not yet. No, not a starter.
Russell Westbrook coming off the bench. Now we're talking because he is such an impact guy coming off the bench, right? He could shoot. Well, I'm sorry. He's not what he used to be, right? He's not going to be 2017 Russell Westbrook, but he can still he's still quick. And he can still make an impact, like being like the sixth man off the bench, not as a starter, because he might get the idea where it's like, oh shit, I can go out and average
do whatever I want.
Yeah, and honestly, it's gonna look like he did like that first season with the Lakers, where it was like, oh my god, is this Russell Westbrook playing basketball?
Yep,
this looks ugly.
4 of 18 every game.
But then he came off the bench, and I was like, oh shit, Russell Westbrook can still play, but I don't want him starting. I don't want him as a starter. I would rather have that not happen. What else?
There's just not a lot of
point guards
that aren't like Kyrie. Not going to happen. Like all these guys, it's like they're just going to resign. But then you have like Gary Harris. So I'm like, do I want Gary Harris as a starting point guard? No.
That's the problem. Is like people are going to say how interesting this the NBA free agency is going to be. It's been pretty boring so far.
Yep.
Like everybody's just re-signing with their teams. I'm like, that's not. I mean, I was hoping for
some boring.
I mean, now granted, like Cleveland thinks they're updating their team by being like Lonzo Ball, come on down. I'm like, come Lonzo Ball for Isaac Okoro, come on down.
Someone told me about that trade at work, and I thought it was LaMelo. I heard Lonzo, like they traded LaMelo. I'm like, oh, Lonzo.
Now he's going to likely serve as the backup because they still have Darius Garland there.
Yep.
Now Darius Garland should be ready for the start of the season. I believe he had like a serious toe injury. So I think Lonzo is going to look really, really good. Or he's going to be like their backup. But Lonzo Ball, like now all of a sudden he's becoming less like a centerpiece. So it's like, oh shit, this guy can't stay healthy. We probably honestly that could be a very valuable bench piece for Cleveland because they didn't really have that last year. Like despite the fact that they ran through everybody, like they just did not have any depth to save their life. And that was the biggest thing that I was worried about. It's like, all right, cool. You got Evan Mobley, you got Jarrett Allen, you got Darius Garland, you got Donovan Mitchell. What do you have around that? Because Dean Wade's not winning you a championship. And I'm being dead serious when I say that. Like you have to get depth to win anything. It's fine to have a good ass regular season record, but you just can't roll into the season with like no depth. And that was Cleveland's biggest issue last year is they just did not have any depth. Sure, they looked great on paper, but really you just got to have depth to like survive like in the playoffs and just win 7-game series over the course of the season.
Yeah. I think if we're going guards, I think my top 3 for starting would be Tyus Jones, again, not a bad one.
Yeah.
Tyus Jones, Fred VanVleet, or Trey Mann.
Ooh. Yeah, I do like Trey Mann. He's not a great offensive player, but he can defend.
Yep.
He can defend.
You just need a guy that's not going to be he averaged 14. Not going to be like, again, a Lillard or but, fast young guy, only 24. Never know.
Yep. So, like I said, Bucks are going to keep it cheap this offseason. And we've already mentioned about the fact that they signed Bobby Portis. Or re-signed him. I think we've already ranted about Giannis, and ESPN continue to try to peddle the fact that here's what I will say on the side of ESPN for a sec. I will say that if they do trade Giannis, number one, they better get a lot back for him.
Yep.
Because
what Dylan Brooks got, I think Giannis could almost triple that.
if Giannis decides, and I hope this is not an egg on their face moment, Giannis decides that, you know what, I can't win with this team anymore, they better get at least like another team star player. Okay. Like a shit ton of draft picks. So that it's going to be a win for both sides. And that could be hard to do, but I would hope that they would do right by Giannis. He hasn't demanded a trade out of Milwaukee yet, but it would free up a lot of money. It would free up a lot of money. Again, not saying that this should happen, but I'm saying hypothetically, if it were to, I just hope that they could like recoup some assets. Because I would love for Giannis to end his career in Milwaukee. I also understand that the reality of that happening is like it's just tough to do. It's just rare for one player to end with one team. It's extremely hard to make that happen. So I hope for Milwaukee's sake they do make it happen. But I'm also saying if it doesn't happen, if they decide we should probably trade him, then they could just be like, all right, well, number one, like, is there a landing spot you want to go? And number two, like, just hope they could just get something of value for him.
Reasonable. I agree. I don't think it'll happen, but I really enjoyed reading some of the mock trades that came up. Some of them were atrocious. The Pistons one, I think, was the worst one. 3 first-round picks, Isaiah Stewart, Tobias Harris, and someone else. Not worth a value. Like, for Giannis, absolutely not. Good times.
He'd have been stingy as hell, though. He's not going to Miami because they've been stingy as hell. They're like, no, we are not giving up Khalil Ware and Tyler Hero for Kevin Durant. That's not happening. No, we're not giving up Haywood Highsmith for Kevin Durant. I'm like, damn, shit.
We are, they're not
stingy as hell. But yeah, other than that, we'll obviously keep track of like what's gonna occur this offseason for the Bucks and Giannis. So, Evan, do you have anything else?
I do not. Finally, the season's over. Shout out OKC. I got a buddy that works for OKC now, so he's getting a ring. Super excited. That was the team I wanted outside the Bucks. So it was fun to watch the end of the playoffs, not having to really worry and stress, even though I would have rather worried and stressed in the finals. Absolutely.
So thank you guys for tuning in to the special edition of the Milwaukee Bucks at Top podcast. And we'll probably be back after the start of free agency. Evan and I could go over the free agent signings and stuff like that. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you when we see you.